We often look at our children and see a reflection of ourselves, but every now and then, you catch a glimpse of something else, a flash of logic that shouldn't be there yet, or a memory that seems impossible for someone so small. You might wonder if they are just bright, or if their brain is actually firing on a completely different frequency. Most people think a genius is just a kid who's good at math, but the truth is, the real signs of a gifted mind often look like behavioral quirks, or even difficult traits that parents try to fix. Today, we are going to look at the subtle, often overlooked markers that your child might be operating at a higher level of potential. And I want you to stay with me until we get to the final sign, because it is the one most likely to be mistaken for a learning struggle, when it's actually a hallmark of a brilliant mind. I'm Dr. Knit, and this is our space to weave together the threads of psychology and parenting. Let's look closer. Number 1. Pattern recognition. The first thing you might notice isn't a high test score, but a strange obsession with how things fit together. We call this advanced pattern recognition. Most toddlers see a pile of blocks. A gifted child sees a sequence or a structural system. It is very normal for parents to just see this as playing quietly, and we often encourage it because it gives us a moment of peace. But for the child, their brain is literally mapping out the laws of physics or logic before they can even tie their shoes. Imagine you're walking through the park and your 3-year-old points out that the pattern on a bench matches the pattern on a leaf you saw 20 minutes ago. That isn't just observation. It's a high-level cognitive link. The emotional impact is profound because these children feel a deep sense of order in a world that usually feels chaotic to a toddler. Psychologically, this is tied to an accelerated development of the fluid reasoning centers of the brain. They aren't just seeing the world, they're decoding it. It's like they've been handed the blueprint while everyone else is just looking at the building. Number 2. Complex language. Have you ever had a conversation with your child and felt like you were talking to a tiny, slightly judgmental college professor? Early and complex language is a massive indicator. Parents often normalize this by saying their kid is just a chatterbox or expressive. But there is a difference between talking a lot and using words like actually or ironically in the correct context before the age of 4. Think about a time your child corrected your grammar or used a metaphor that stopped you in your tracks. I remember a mother telling me her son described his sadness not as crying, but as feeling like a rainy day inside a jar. That is abstract linguistic processing. It allows them to bridge the gap between their complex internal emotions and the outside world much earlier than their peers. This happens because the Broca's area in their brain is often more densely connected. They aren't just mimicking you, they are manipulating language to fit their thoughts. It's a beautiful, if sometimes exhausting, bridge to their inner world. Number 3. Intense interest. Now, take a second and think about the last time your child got lost in something. I don't mean watching a cartoon. I mean truly, deeply immersed in a project. This is the sign of the intense interest. Many parents worry their child is too narrow-minded because they only want to talk about space or insects for 6 months straight. We tend to try and diversify their interests, but that intensity is actually a superpower called hyperfocus. When a child is gifted, their brain craves dopamine through mastery. They don't just want to know that a bee makes honey. They want to know the hexagonal geometry of the hive and the pheromone signals of the queen. A real-life example is the child who can identify every single construction vehicle by its technical name, while other kids are still just saying truck. The emotional weight here is that they derive their security from knowledge. Psychologically, this is an early sign of a high need for cognition. They aren't being stubborn. They are being driven by an internal engine that runs on information. Number 4. The why loop. Let's pivot for a moment to something that often looks like a problem, the why loop. Every kid asks why, but a genius-level child asks the why that leads to a how and eventually to a what if. Parents often get burnt out by this and eventually give the because I said so answer. It's an understandable survival mechanism for a tired parent. But for the child, each question is a thread they are pulling to see where it leads. I once worked with a 5-year-old who asked why the moon followed the car. When his dad explained reflection and distance, the boy didn't stop. He asked if the moon followed people on the other side of the world at the same time, and how the moon decided who to watch. This is divergent thinking. They are testing the boundaries of reality. When we shut this down, they feel a literal physical frustration because their brain is being denied the click of a completed thought. They don't just want an answer, they want to understand the mechanism of existence. I really appreciate you spending this time with me today. If you're finding these insights helpful, it would mean a lot if you could let me know by hitting that like button. It helps our little community of mindful parents grow. We've covered the logic and the language, but the most fascinating signs are actually the emotional ones, and we're about to dive into those right now. There is one specific trait coming up that explains why your child might be so sensitive, and it's probably the most important thing you'll hear today. Number 5. Overexcitabilities. This brings us to overexcitabilities. This is a term coined by psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski. It basically means that a gifted brain doesn't just think more, it feels more. Everything is turned up to 11. Parents often see this as being too sensitive or dramatic. You might find yourself constantly cutting tags out of shirts or avoiding loud birthday parties because your child can't handle the sensory input. It's normal to feel frustrated when your child has a meltdown over a scratchy sock. But look at it through the lens of a highly tuned instrument. If their brain is powerful enough to process complex patterns, it's also sensitive enough to feel the vibration of the world more intensely. An example is the child who weeps over a dead bug on the sidewalk or feels an unfair situation at school for days. They have an advanced sense of justice and empathy. Their nervous system is simply more permeable. They aren't being difficult, they are being flooded by a world that is too loud and too fast for their deep processing mind. Number 6. Nonlinear solving. Have you ever noticed your child solving a problem in a way that made absolutely no sense to you, but it worked? This is nonlinear problem solving. While other kids follow the instructions from A to B to C, the gifted child might jump from A to Z and then work backward. Because that's not how you're supposed to do it, especially when it comes to schoolwork or chores. But this leap in logic is a sign of high-level abstract reasoning. They aren't bound by the standard way of doing things. I remember a little girl who was asked to clean up her toys. Instead of picking them up one by one, she built a conveyor belt out of her cardboard blocks to slide the toys into the bin. It took twice as long, but she solved the problem of labor with engineering. Psychologically, this shows a high degree of executive function and creativity. They see the goal, not the path. If we allow them the space to be inefficient in their own way, we are actually allowing them to practice innovation. Number 7. Asynchronous development. Finally, we have the most confusing sign of all, asynchronous development. This means the child is a genius in one area but seems behind in another. This is the one that gets kids labeled as having a learning disability when they are actually gifted. You might have a child who can explain the Big Bang Theory but can't remember to put on their shoes, or a child who reads at a high school level but has the emotional outbursts of a much younger toddler. Parents often feel a lot of shame here. We think, if they're so smart, why can't they just behave? But the brain's resources are being diverted. If 90% of their energy is going into cognitive processing, there isn't much left for emotional regulation or motor skills. It's like having a Ferrari engine in a car with wooden wheels. A real-life example is the absent-minded professor child. They are so busy thinking that they literally do not see the mess in front of them. Recognizing this is an emotional closure for many parents. It's the realization that your child isn't being lazy or defiant. They are just lopsided, and that's okay. Brilliance is rarely symmetrical. If you recognize these signs in your child, the most important thing to remember is that you don't need to be a perfect parent to a perfect child. You just need to be their advocate and their safe harbor. Being gifted is a heavy load for a small person to carry, and they need your warmth more than they need more workbooks. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. If you want to keep exploring how our children's minds work, I'd love for you to subscribe and join our community. Before you go, I'm curious, what topic do you want to see us weave together next? Tell me in the comments. I'm Dr. Knit, and I'll see you in the next one.